Welcome to the Vandy Sports Podcast. I am your host, Chris Lee. Our guest today is Kevin Ingram. Kevin, of course, has done all sorts of work for Vanderbilt. He has been the midweek baseball guy on the SEC network for a while. He's going to be the sideline announcer for the coming season. And, of course, Kevin also has done a lot of Vanderbilt basketball games on the SEC network. So Kevin and I will talk Vanderbilt baseball on today's episode. This edition is brought to you by Jody Jones DDS. He is trusted for his creative design and committed to both the function and the aesthetics of your smile. Jody Jones provides a range of sought-after general and cosmetic dentistry services at his practice in Nashville, Tennessee. He has earned the title of #1 in Nashville for cosmetic dentistry. He provides a unique luxury environment for his patients who want his famous Hollywood smile or his other services. A special thank you to Jody for stepping up and being the title sponsor of this podcast. Our news is sponsored by Sutherland & Belk, a family-owned injury law firm. If you or a loved one has been hurt in an accident, call Taylor or Russell at 615-846-6200. See what your rights are and if they can help. Vanderbilt was back at football practice this week. There was a small COVID outbreak that was responsible for the postponement of a practice earlier in the week, but the team is back at it again. The guest line is presented by Boll & Branch, started by Vanderbilt graduates Scott and Missy Tannen. I had no clue how comfortable sheets could be until I got Boll & Branch sheets. They are fair trade certified, meaning they are made under safe conditions by men and women treated and paid fairly. Try them free for a month. You can return them, but you won't want to. Once you get the sheets, try the mattress. That was voted the best mattress of 2018. Go to bollandbranch.com. That is spelled B-O-L-L. Enter the promo code Vandy and get $50 off your first set of sheets. Kevin Ingram joins us today, first-time guest on the podcast. Kevin, of course, has been an announcer for Vanderbilt for baseball games during the midweek, has done some basketball games, of course, for the SEC network, and, of course, will be doing sideline reporting this year for the football team. Kevin, thank you for joining us today, and I hope you have been well, sir.
Oh, man, I've been doing great, Chris. Now, do I get any kind of prize or, anything for coming on the podcast here?
You get the same prize everyone else gets, which is you get to enjoy the experience.
Well, that is a prize in itself, so that's good enough for me.
Well,
I appreciate you asking me.
Sure. Well, it feels weird. I've been on the other side of this dozens of times, and now this is the first time I'm the one leading the band here, so that'll be interesting.
Sure.
Let's talk about last season. Unfortunately, the plug got pulled before any of us got to see much. What were your impressions of where that team was going?
It would have been really interesting to see how they developed, Chris. They got off to a pretty good start. They went out to Arizona and lost 2 out of 3, but overall it felt like they were going in a good direction. I mean, you have the kind of pitching that they had. That you felt like that was going to take them a long way. The offense had a ways to go, but the pitching was definitely there. It was disappointing not to see what kind of season Kumar Rocker would have had, or Mason Hickman, who had obviously been around there a while, but Rocker especially in his sophomore year, and Jack Leiter, I called a couple of his midweek starts, and man, you saw that dude. He made like 3 starts and went 2-0 and had a sub-2 ERA and holding opponents to under 100 batting average. I think he made 4 appearances total, but man, you could just see the stuff that he had, the fastball and the breaking stuff. It was all there, and that to me is the part I felt like we got robbed a little bit of seeing what those pitchers were going to become. I think it was a team that probably. By the time you got later on in the season, you made it through a tough SEC season, and you kind of see where they are. I mean, I think they were going to, make it to the NCAA regionals, have a chance to do some damage in the NCAA tournament, maybe have a chance to get back to Omaha. They certainly didn't have near the firepower, nowhere close to that 2019 team, which was, one of the greatest in the history of college baseball. But I think they would have had a chance to do some damage in the NCAA tournament had the season gone on and this team been able to really progress. And, you had a superstar in Austin Martin, but he also had some guys starting to show that they were going to be special players players. I think Isaiah Thomas might be the next big star for this group. But, man, it just felt like they got robbed. And you felt bad for guys like Ty DeBall and Harrison Ray. I mean, it was their last go-around. They ended up, going and signing pro deals. But you wanted to see those guys go out the right way. It felt like they got robbed, that we did too a little bit.
Yeah, I felt that way for sure. I think the offense would have been a struggle. That might have been one of those things where maybe in postseason, as kids got at bats and experience, they were able to turn it on and take it to a different level. And I talked to Tim. He felt like offensively they would have eventually come around. He really liked some of the things he was seeing from his younger kids, as my dog is apparently not liking something he's hearing on the
Bark
podcast.
In the park.
Right. He's wearing the cone of shame, by the way, right now. So.
Oh, man, that's tough. Still wearing the cone of shame? Now, we talked the other day, and the dog had that going on.
Yeah, well, he was neutered this week, so this is protect him from himself kind of thing. It might be a little too much information, but in any case, I really felt like, talking to Tim, I think he thought that lineup was eventually going to come around.
Yeah, I think so too. And Cooper Davis was having a really nice year. He had hit 348 in 18 games, and it wasn't going to have the power. It was never going to have the power that it did the year before, but it felt like they could probably score enough runs to have a chance to have a good season, because when you have the kind of pitching that can lock people down like they could, you don't have to score a ton of runs to be successful. But yeah, the offense, you could already tell early in the season it was going to be a little bit of a struggle. But that's the thing that you miss by not seeing the season progress from mid-March on into early May, is just seeing what they were going to be like. But I'm with you, and I think the offense might have been a problem, especially as you got into some of those SEC weekends where you see pitching that stacks up well against Vanderbilt, and those runs are going to be at a premium. That could have been an issue for this group. But again, the pitching was going to be there. It was just a matter of if they could score enough runs.
Yeah, the pitching was loaded across the league, so I'm confident that was going to be an issue a good bit of the season. But my goodness, nobody was loaded like they were. I mean, they had a chance to have a pitching staff for the ages, because you look at the rotation. They had two guys in Rocker and Hickman who could have been first-team All-Americans, and who knows what Leiter would have become. They had a superstar closer at the end, although he had struggled. But the thing that they really had that was really their Achilles heel the year before, I mean, I say that relatively speaking, that team was pretty strong, and your weak parts get magnified by looking at the strong parts. But the thing that struck me, and you saw it in midweek, Kevin, they had so many kids, Leboke, Doolin, Schultz, who could just come in and not only overpower hitters at times, but just throw strikes, which is really hard to do as a freshman. That, to me, was the thing that put them over the top, because I kept looking at that and I kept thinking, even if they were to lose Hickman or Rocker or somebody for an extended stay, man, they had so many arms. I figured it was going to work out one way or the other.
Yeah, I think so too. And are you like me in that when you see some of these young guys come in and start to pitch for the first time, and they're throwing like mid-90s, and they have really polished stuff and good-looking deliveries and all that, and you think, where do these guys come from? It's like they're just one after another, making their way through this program. You could tell they were being careful with a couple of the big guns. Kamar Rocker, I think, got scratched from a start early in the season in one of the weekend series. But you felt good that even if those guys weren't available, you're talking about the top players, even if they weren't available for any stretch of time, there were going to be plenty of firepower from the pitching staff to cover those things. And yeah, you missed out on on seeing what the first years might have been like for some of those freshman dudes. And I know Tyler Brown got off to a rough start, but he was going to be fine, I think. And as you make your way through the season, especially you play those SEC weekends, and where you need that experience on the backside, coming out of the bullpen to try to lock it down, you felt pretty confident that guy was going to be just fine. But yeah, the arms that continue to roll through this program and get the tutelage of Scott Brown and Tim Corbin year after year, to me, it's just remarkable to see the kind of stuff these guys have.
Well, they've had dominant arms for, and I don't know that they've had that many freshmen who come in and throw that hard right away, but it's not a sight unseen there. But what, to me, set the difference with those guys was you see guys who come in and they're hard to hit right away, but maybe they struggle through 22 and 23 pitch innings where they're walking a couple of guys, hitting somebody. Like, you can't hit them, but they also can't always get it where they want to. You were seeing guys come in and throw maybe 11, 12 pitch innings, get in, get out. And that just, to me, the ease with which some of those kids did it. Now, look, the competition was going to get a lot tougher in the SEC, but they showed the ability to hit the spots and throw strikes. And that was the thing to me that just opened my eyes, because I've seen a lot of great pitching classes there, but I've never seen one with as many kids that they brought in that could do that right away. And I don't think it's even close.
Yeah, I mean, like you say, you talk about the polish of these guys, and when you stick them in those spots, and I would have liked to see what they would have done with Jack Leiter, because they used him in a starting role in the midweek, but would it have progressed to a point where you got to where he ended up being maybe a weekend starter in conference play, or did they just kind of keep him in that? Hey, you get a midweek start, then we usually in some spots on the weekend. How that all would have played out. Mason Hickman was going to be one of your main guys. Ethan Smith was good in some of the work that I saw. I saw him pitch some in the midweek. I mean, you were going to have Kamar on the weekend. Obviously, Jake Eater was there too. I just liked. I would have been interested to see how he pieced all that together as he got deeper in the year and guys got a little more experience under the belts, and maybe Leiter got into more of those big situations on the weekend in some of the conference matchups. And you kind of say the same thing about the lineup too. How would they have? You see him often try different lineups, try different combinations of guys in the pre-conference, just trying to see what he has and what works. What would they have settled on, or would it have been a process that would have continued to be a work in progress as you made your way through conference play?
Well, so many regrets, and again, not seeing how that pitching staff would have played out is one of them. But the other one, and I don't know which one I'd put first, maybe this one that I'm about to mention, but I was really dying to see what Austin Martin was going to do with the full season, because it felt like the bat was just coming around. It's not like he'd been bad. In fact, his production was great, but I felt like you watched him, and for whatever reason, maybe because it was February and it was cold, he wasn't quite Austin Martin yet. But I felt like he had just started to get in that Austin Martin type of groove and was going to have a really good shot to be National Player of the Year. And that may be, now that I think about it, my biggest regret, because I've said, I think if Austin Martin gets a full junior year, he had an argument to walk out as the greatest player they ever had in terms of what he did there, because if you throw a National Player of the Year type season on top of what he did last year, where he nearly hit 400, and was arguably their best player. It was either he or JJ Bleday, and I could go either way. I really think that the body of work between that and what he did his freshman year was just going to be exceptional, and I really hate it that we didn't get to see what that would have looked like for him. That's
a major disappointment, Chris. No question about it. I want to say he had a little bit of an injury issue that kept him out of a couple games, if I remember correctly, but he played most of them. He had 377 in 16 games, 3 homers, 11 RBIs, 6 doubles. But he is a really special player. And if he had played the whole year, I have no doubt he would have had another monster season. You wonder what it would have been like, maybe not having the protection in the lineup that he had the previous season, when he had, that with JJ Bleday and everybody else in that national championship group. But he was destined to have a huge 2020 season. He was already a high draft pick, going in the near the top to the Toronto Blue Jays. And I think there were a lot of us who thought he might go even higher than he did. But when I think about special talents that have gone through this program, and you've seen him during the time that Tim Corbin has been here, that guy's one of the 2 or 3 you think of. I mean, he's in that elite group with Dansby Swanson. I still think Jared Kendall was one of the most talented dudes I saw come through here. But I mean, you can make a long list of guys. But Austin Martin, his versatility, you could put him pretty much anywhere on the field. You felt pretty good about it. He played a lot of third base, but you think about going back to his freshman year and they put him in the outfield. He made some spectacular plays out there and left. There's one against South Carolina that comes to mind that, kind of saved the day in a situation late in a game. But he is just a really special talent. I'm looking forward to seeing what he does in the big leagues and how Toronto uses him. Their infield looks like it's going to be pretty set for a long time, but when you got a guy who can handle a bat like he does, and just kind of brings that confidence. He has a little swagger to him, and you can tell he just loves playing the game. I think he looks like a can't miss guy in the big leagues. But I wish we could have seen the whole production of 2020 out of him, and just seen how special it might have been.
Yeah, I always liked the positional versatility, the fact that you could plug him in a lot of spots. But I've said this, and see if you agree. You've seen a lot of baseball, a lot of college baseball. I don't think that I've ever seen a kid in college baseball who could barrel the ball as consistently as Austin Martin did.
Oh, yeah. Hey, I just makes solid contact at bat after at bat. And, I was thinking, I thought about this a lot. You mentioned earlier that he had a chance to hit 400 in 2019. And really, he was almost a victim of the team's success in his quest to hit 400. That didn't really matter because they won the national championship, but he came pretty close. But it's like they played too many games for him to do it. I mean, he was over 400 for the entire season until the end of the College World Series. And we did some games early in the year in 2019, and he was just tearing the cover off the ball and just, I don't know, batting average of 500 or whatever it was. And even when it, you started to come back to earth a little bit as they get more at bats, as happens to everybody, we said, he's got to level off at some point. He's going to dip below 400 and he's going to have a great year, but it never happened. He just kept on. It was so consistent week in, week out. And I would have, he just had so many at bats in the end, when they got deep in the College World Series and played that final series against Michigan that it dipped under 400. But he just has so many good at bats where he's never really out of an at bat or overmatched. And like you say, he just makes solid contact and barrels it up time after time. He's just one of those guys. He just always looks locked in every time he steps to the plate and can make something happen for you.
That's a great point because I think I read somewhere, I don't know if it was Driveline that did the research, but I think that the toughest hitters park in college baseball is TD Ameritrade Park, which is not really a college park, but of course you play the College World Series here and they've come up with factors. Of course, Hoover is not, I know it's not a terrific hitters park either, probably not as bad as TD Ameritrade, but it's known as a pitchers park. So you're right, I didn't think about that, but they played 6 games in Omaha, and then they also played, 4 in the SEC tournament. So right there, just what they ran into, and especially in Omaha, you look back on the arms they faced, the Chris Wells and the kids like that, and I mean, Tommy Henry, just about every pitcher he went up against. And if you want to go to Duke, too, you can also include Bryce Jarvis in there. But almost every pitcher he went up against in the last few weeks was a guy that's a draft prospect. A lot of those are first-rounders. You're right. I mean, just the fact that their season extended on really did hinder his stats a bit.
It did. That TD Ameritrade Park, that's a fantastic place to have the College World Series. But it's it is a pitcher's park. It's not you're not going to go out there and see a ton of home runs. When you were talking about Hoover a minute ago, I was thinking, I had the Vanderbilt Ole Miss game on line 1 from the SEC tournament.
Oh my goodness. Yes.
A couple years ago. You see a little bit of everything at that place, especially when you get deeper in the tournament and everybody's used up all their pitching and everybody's sort of running on fumes. You never know what you might get in those last few games. But yeah, Austin Martin, just a remarkable talent. And, there are certain players that have stood out over this run with Tim Corbin as coach and all the College World Series trips and really some great players on teams that didn't get to Omaha. And Austin Martin is right there at the top of the list for me.
We've got some questions about next year, so I'll just go right into those if that's cool with you, Kevin. These are listener questions. Okay,
I'll do my best.
Yeah, I think you'll be okay. The mailbag is sponsored by Vanderbilt fan Josh Minton, an independent insurance agent operating out of Brentwood. Josh can take care of all your insurance needs. Call him today at 615-933-1979. Email him at josh@hqinsurance.com. Follow him on Twitter at Joshua Minton HQ or at facebook.com/JD Minton HQ. He is my insurance agent. Give him a try. Tell him you heard about it here. VU65 says, what will the fall workouts consist of for VandyBoys? As I'm doing this, another listener who's got a little bit of knowledge of the situation tells me that he thinks fall ball is going to start September the 15th and run into October. So at least we know a timeline now, if that's true.
Yeah, I know the best I understand it, they can do the usual fall practices and the things as far as Vanderbilt's team. You just can't have a series against somebody else like you normally would. In previous years, Vanderbilt's played, Oklahoma State or, try other teams. Michigan came in here for that little series last year, which was very cool. But yeah, there's not going to be any work against outside teams, but you can do all the stuff that you normally do as far as your own inter squad stuff. And man, it always seems like that stuff's so valuable for Tim Corbin, and sort of sets the stage for what's to come when the calendar flips and you start really getting ready for the season. They get a good look at these guys and what they're about and how far some of them have to go, and some of the young players and what they're able to do. But no outside competition, but that sounds good on a start date, which it isn't really that far away in mid-September.
Next question, and these are all from VU65, by the way. He says, what changes to the 2021 season have been determined? I know roster limits is one of those. In fact, I put together a roster at VandySports.com. VU Commodores does not have one up yet, but I think they've got 40 players on campus right now, and 41 when Christian Little shows up. If he does, I'll get to that in a minute. But that's one of the changes, is that they basically got the roster restriction of the 35-man roster is not a restriction for this year just because of the mess left to them by COVID.
Sure. I was also reading Kendall Rogers reporting the NCAA had approved some a temporary mandate to pay voluntary assistant coaches. I'm not sure how that goes about extending into next year. We really haven't heard a whole lot in terms of how the season might be altered or any of that, because it feels like they're just sort of waiting to see what's going to happen. By the time you get to early 2021, maybe there's a vaccine and the whole situation eases up a little bit and you can just play the season like you normally would. I think that would be my hope anyway. But as far as making any alterations to the schedule, I haven't heard of anything yet. The draft is going to be different. The draft is going to be in July, which would be after the College World Series is over, assuming things go as scheduled. And what I understand, they're going to roll it into the All-Star Game festivities in Atlanta and have the draft be part of that, which I think that's a great idea. I always thought that was so awkward and weird that they did the thing the way they did, having the draft right there in the middle of the NCAA tournament where the kids are off for regionals somewhere and they come off the field, or while they're still playing, they're getting drafted by the major league teams. I do like that part of it. But in terms of the schedule being altered, I have not heard anything there yet.
Yeah, in fact, I had not heard that on the All-Star Game and the draft, so I think that'll be fun. I do regret that they didn't get to do what they were going to do this year, which was to have the draft right before the College World Series started in Omaha. I thought that was going to be a lot of fun. It would have been a fun road trip had Vandy been in that, to get out there maybe a little early and try to cover both.
Oh, yeah, that would have been great because, Vanderbilt's always going to have guys who are going to be part of, you feel like pretty high draft picks and have a chance to be selected. So to have, if you had the double play of them being in the College World Series and having guys who are going to go near the top of the draft, it would have been cool to see how that whole thing went down.
VU65 says, how significant is the addition of Christian Little to the spring roster? Christian Little, for people who are not aware, is a very highly regarded 2021 kid, or he was supposed to be in the 2021 class, and he is reclassified. He's potentially a top 10 in the guy draft, but he is now, looks like, going to come to campus in January. Kevin, I know how these things go. Sometimes kids are highly regarded and come in, and some of them are Jack Leiter, and they take to everything like a duck to water. Some of them are Tyler Beatty or some guys like that where maybe they struggle a little bit more at the first, so you just never know till they get to campus and you see them. But what I've heard is that kid throws strikes, and to me that's a big thing that differentiates the kids who succeed and the ones who do not.
Yeah, I was before we went on here, I was doing a little reading up on Christian Little, the young man from St. Louis. Yeah, 17 years old, throws 94, 95 from what I saw, and I watched a little video of him. Looked like some nice breaking stuff. You never can, like you say, you never can tell until they get up there and face college hitters. But boy, I just think that's for any kid and he sounds like he has a really strong family backing, and I think his dad had played professional ball, but it's still a big transition to go from playing high school ball to go into college life. Not just playing college baseball, but college life. Going to a very difficult school and Vanderbilt in terms of the academics. Going to a top level program where you're playing the best of the best with the Commodores. For any kid, it's a transition. I think it'll be interesting to watch. But boy, if you have that kind of stuff and you can throw strikes, you can come in and maybe get settled in and feel pretty comfortable. But yeah, I know that made a lot of headlines. I even saw some Vandy fans over on Twitter, writing songs about it to the tune of Sister Christian, the Night Ranger hit from the '80s,
Nice.
which I found some of that stuff pretty humorous. I was going to add some of my own spin at, if they could do Sentimental Street or something like that next. But yeah, it's man, from everything you see and hear, he has great stuff. But we'll see what kind of impact he might be able to have as a 17-year-old freshman.
I think that's going to stick in my head all day, the tune to Sister Christian. We might have to come up with some lyrics on our own at some point.
I want to say it was the Arik Goldfinger fellow on Twitter that wrote that.
Scream, yeah. we may have to have a podcast segment of song lyrics by Chris and Kevin and maybe do our own. I hear you're pretty good at that.
Yeah, I mean, I was out on a run yesterday morning, and after I saw that, the Sister Christian Little thing on Twitter, I was like, you know what? I think I'm going to bust out Night Ranger's greatest hits and listen to it on my run. So I came up with all sorts of stuff that I could do, during games. If he's pitching, he kept him off of Sentimental Street, the secret of his success. I mean, you could go on for days. But yeah, so we can definitely do that on a future podcast.
As a sidebar, do you ever watch the Braves games and listen to their organist?
I do, and their organist is very clever. I've noticed it watching on TV, and I've watched it, and I've noticed in times we've been to games down there, some of the stuff that they do is deep catalog, isn't it? And you really have to think. It's almost a challenge if you watch the games or you go to a game down there, and you listen to what they play for one of the opposing hitters, the walk-up music, and you try to figure out what the connection was. There was one, we were at Braves Diamondbacks, I believe it was, a couple seasons ago, and A.J. Pollock came to the plate for Arizona. And the organist played the Georgia fight song, was it Battle Hymn of the Republic, or, the familiar Georgia Bulldogs fight song. And I said, okay, what is the connection with A.J. Pollock and that song? I looked up A.J. Pollock. Is he from Georgia? Does he have some connection here? Did he play at Georgia? I was like, I don't think so. And he was from like the Northeast. He's from like New Hampshire or Connecticut or somewhere like that. It's like, okay, well, that's not the connection. And then it occurred to me, it was David Pollock.
David Pollock. That's what I was thinking.
Pollock, and
yes.
They're not related. In fact, I don't even know if their last names are spelled exactly the same. But it was a connection. It was A.J. Pollock and David Pollock, and then the Georgia fight song. I was like, that's going deep right there. I had to even think about it and get a little help on that one. I had my phone and I looked it up, and I thought that was really amusing.
They were playing the Phillies the other night, and Gene Segura comes to the plate, and they're playing Billie Jean, which is pretty clever.
Right.
The one I was down there 2 summers ago for a game with the Brewers, and I felt like I was just out. I felt like I was like the only guy around paying attention. I was listening to the stuff he would come up with, and Jesus Aguilar was a great one because one time he's up and they're playing Jesus Is Just All Right by Me, and then they played a couple of Christian hymns, and I was just like, God, this is. Like you're the only guy in the room that's paying attention to something that's going on, and it just amuses you. That was kind of me that day, but I get a kick out of him.
Yeah, some of the stuff, and some of it's pretty edgy. I can't really think of examples off the top of my head, but some of it is like, boy, that's getting up close to the line to play that when this person comes up to bat. And over the years, you've seen people who do click effects or play walk-up music for opposing hitters. You've seen them get in trouble. That's happened here with the sounds on an occasion or two, and you read about it every now and then, where somebody will play something that the hitter doesn't like, or somebody feels like it is a bit out of line, and they'll get called on the carpet, or you've even seen people lose their jobs over such things. But back to the organist Atlanta, really, really clever. That they come up with some great stuff.
The only regret I have is that Skip Caray wasn't contemporary with him, where you could have that combo, because that would have been just gold.
Oh, it sure would have been. Aren't there some things that you see or read, you see maybe a name from the Braves from the 1980s, and you can't read it in your own voice. You read it in Skip Caray's voice. Like you see some old photo. I love the Super 70s sports guy.
Oh,
yes. He puts all sorts of stuff, but he'll put up some old picture of somebody with the Braves and Gene Garber. I mean, you can't read those names without hearing them in Skip Caray's voice. Glenn Hubbard.
Yes. I don't know that you could do. I don't know that either Skip or Harry would be tenable in today's day and age. Harry certainly not, and
right.
I think it's a
shame.
Would
never work now.
No, and Skip. I think the best Skip Caray line ever was, it was one of those 60-win seasons, which they had so many of, and it's September, I think, and they're playing the Pirates, and he says, and like lambs being led to the slaughter, the Atlanta Braves take the field. I don't think you could get away with that now.
There's no way management would put up with that now. Or, some of the stuff that Harry Caray did. I mean, he was just, I mean, it would be Twitter every single day on stuff that Harry Caray said. I watch the White Sox games quite a bit, and Jason Benetti and Steve Stone are excellent on their broadcast. But, Steve Stone's been around a long time, and you and I are similar in age. We go back to the WGN days where it was Harry Caray and Steve Stone doing the Cubs games for all those years. And every time I see Steve Stone, I think of this exchange where Harry Caray goes, "He's going to get a shot of cocaine for that tooth." And Steve Stone, without missing a beat, goes,
no.
"I think that's Novocaine, Harry."
Oh, and when he got on his spell names backwards kick.
My goodness. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Here's Andres Galarraga, whose name you say backwards as Galarraga.
Yeah.
I always wonder and Steve Stone is known as one of the really nice guys and easy to work with people in broadcasting. But I always wondered what he was thinking when all that was going on. And you get the feeling, and it came through in the broadcast, that a lot of his goal was, I got to get this thing back on the rails. I got to get this back focused on the game. So Harry would do something like that. And then Steve would come back with, well, the arms in the outfield here, Andre Dawson, obviously has a great arm and right. So that's something to watch out for. Or for all you youngsters out there, I mean, he'd always try to steer it back to wherever they needed to be on actually announcing the game that was at hand.
I think Steve Stone might have had the toughest straight man job in sports, A, and B, if he did not write a book about his experiences, which I don't think I've heard, that he really missed an opportunity.
He did, and it's usually the play-by-play guy is the one who's the straight man, and then the analyst is the one who's the crazy one. Looking at you, Dave Pash and Bill Walton, but yeah, in that case, Steve Stone was playing the straight man, and Harry Caray was just all over the map. Interesting thing about Harry, and I know we're like going way off the map here, but I mean, you go back, we know him more from Cub days when he was getting up there in age, and to be fair, he had a stroke and it was never really the same after that. But if you go back to the old days when he called the Cardinals games, and I know he did White Sox, and I think maybe the Oakland A's for a short time. But there was a time when he and Jack Buck were doing the games for the Cardinals, and Harry Caray was an excellent baseball announcer. Not kind of the crazy character that we knew from the 80s, but really a legit solid play-by-play guy.
Yeah, did you ever read his bio? And I promise to our listeners I'll get us back on track, but did you ever read the bio that he had? I guess this was probably 25, 30 years ago.
I did not. No, I read the one that Jack Brickhouse wrote, but I don't think I've ever read the one that Harry Caray did.
Well, the way I remembered it was like, we called a game, and then we went to this bar, and then we went to that bar, and then we got back in at 4 a.m, and then there was another game, and then we went to this bar, and then we went to that bar. I marveled at the energy that he had to be able to do all that he did.
Yeah, I mean, how can you? Could he get sobered up in time to call the game, or are you not just incredibly hungover when you tried to get to the ballpark? That it's amazing the lifestyle that some of these people lived, and are able to perform their jobs as well as they do. And yeah, Harry Carey, man, he would always be talking about somebody's restaurant or just busting chops with somebody in the dugout. It was great, man. I mean, it was just classic TV to watch. And we talked about those Braves guys, Skip Caray and Ernie Johnson Sr. and Pete Van Wieren. And to me, Pete Van Wieren is one of the great announcers in baseball history. But those guys are about equally entertaining too. I mean, Skip Caray could. He could call the game and do a good job of it, but he was always super entertaining in his own right. Especially, it was almost like he was better when the Braves were bad. And you felt good for those guys that they got the payoff of seeing some championship teams once the 90s rolled around.
Oh, man, 80s nostalgia. I think I could do a podcast or four on that alone. But
that's our next podcast.
It should be. Well, we'll get back to the questions. Got two more here. Besides the players going pro, what other players on last year's roster are not returning? I know Chance Huff, Justin Henry Malloy are at Georgia Tech. Sterling Hayes is at Creighton. Eric Kaiser's in the transfer portal. Don't think he's landed anywhere, which I think he will, given how well he's throwing. And I missed this. It kind of went under everybody's radar, but Jake Eater did indeed sign with the Marlins and is in their system now. So I think there might have been one or two other ones, but those I think are the main ones.
Yes, I know as far as the drafted players, Austin Martin to Toronto, Tyler Brown, 3rd round, Houston. You mentioned Jake Eater, 4th round to Miami, and Mason Hickman in the 5th to Cleveland. Harrison Ray, Toronto, Ty Duvall with Seattle. Other than the ones you mentioned, I don't know of others. That to me has been one of the more confusing parts of all this, is trying to keep track of who's here and who's not, and who's in the portal and who has eligibility left and who gets an extra year. Those things to me have been, it's almost felt like we've just, disconnected from the real world here for so many months that, I'm like you on some of this stuff. It's just been hard to keep track of, but the ones you mentioned, other than those, I don't know of others.
And the last question, someone asked about the status of Jason Gonzalez, who missed last year. My understanding is that he is back. And I've heard, I don't know if he's made some changes to his swing or something. I've heard that they've been pretty pleased with him for whatever that's worth. But that's a guy who, Kevin, if it works for him, that's a monster power bat in that lineup when that's something that they needed a year ago.
It sure is. He got off to a good start in his freshman year. He was playing a lot. I mean, he was starting. He was playing a lot of third base. But then as the year went along, he wasn't really a big part of what they were doing. But yeah, that I was thinking last year going into the season, like, boy, that this might be a chance for him to really step up. I mean, they need that power bat, and maybe he could be one of those guys. But yeah, definitely root for Jason if he's back and going to be good to go. That would be a big help for him.
Kevin, that is the end of the mailbag. I want to give you a chance to promote the things you're doing these days. Of course, you'll be starting as the sideline announcer at Vanderbilt, which you've done before for football season. You will be, I know, heavily involved in basketball and baseball. You and I also happen to be, by chance, working on some things at Blue Ribbon College Basketball Yearbook with Chris Dortch. You and I did a podcast together last week. We're both doing some writing things on that end for a newsletter that we've started. So I wanted to give you a chance to promote that and anything else that you're involved with at the moment.
Yeah, Chris, I appreciate that. Yeah, doing those things you mentioned. We'll be starting with football here. The first game's in about 3 weeks against Texas A&M. I don't know how the broadcast or the travel or any of it is going to be set up completely just yet. We're still trying to understand what we will be able to do and how it's going to come together. I was talking to Joe Fisher about that the other day. But yeah, helping with the football broadcast, we doing the pregame and sidelines there, and I'd done that for I guess 10 or 11 seasons from 2002 to 2012. But happy to be back with Joe. He's one of my best friends, and I look forward to being back with those guys with Norman and Kirby, the engineer, and. Then as far as like the SEC Network Plus broadcast, the telecast, those will be starting soon too. We're going to be doing soccer matches Each team is going to play 8 SEC games in the women's soccer schedule, 4 home, 4 away. We're supposed to have the schedule within the next couple of days, I believe, or at least that's supposed to be out there. So hopefully I'll know more about that. But that's supposed to start here in maybe another week and a half or so. I want to say around the 15th is when they're targeting to start that. With the season that'll run through October, then they'll have the SEC tournament at Orange Beach, and everybody will be going to that. Do the soccer matches. We'll be starting with basketball. I announce the games for Belmont. I've done the radio and TV for Belmont for 17 seasons. So I will be continuing with that, but also with the SEC Network Plus telecast for Vanderbilt for men's and women's basketball. We do a number of the non-conference games for men. Same for the women's. We do some of the SEC play there, and then baseball for SEC Network Plus. We typically do, a lot of the midweek and non-conference games, in February and March, and then some of the SEC games as you unfold into March and April and finish the season up in May. So it's usually a busy time. It's been such a strange year. I had no idea when I left Hawkins Field on March the 12th or whatever the date was after a Vandy Toledo baseball game that I would not be doing any sort of game again until September. And that's where we are. It's been a long stretch. I've really missed it. I was really sad that the baseball season got shut down. I love calling the games and being a part of that program. But it's been a long road here, and of course, the changes of the zone affected myself and Mark Howard, obviously, and we'll see what's next there. But yeah, going to be getting back into doing some games soon. I don't know if I'll be doing the full 80 or 90 game schedule that I normally do, but just will be happy to be doing games in whatever form they come. But yeah, definitely looking forward to getting started with football and with soccer here in the coming weeks.
Well, you were terrific at everything you do. And also, I know that this summer we did not do as many podcasts. We're going to be cranking those back up again soon. I'll probably do a couple a week until football season starts. And then when football season does start, Kevin is going to be part of my regular rotation of guests, and I think we'll extend that on through basketball and baseball because you're covering that too, provided you have the time. But, Kevin, I know I'm very excited about that. We will do our 80s lyrics. We will talk crazy broadcasters from 80s baseball and maybe talk a little Vandy in there too at some point.
Yeah, and we'll tell some Chris Dortch stories too, because I know we're both really excited about what we're doing with Chris and Blue Ribbon. It's given me a chance to do some new stuff. I've helped him edit some on the yearbook, which I know you're very deep into and do a great job there. I've been doing a little bit of writing. That's not something I've done before for print. I've done a lot of broadcast writing over my career there, but trying my hand at print writing, which is a little different than what I normally do, but it's been fun doing podcasts with Blue Ribbon. Do one of some type every week, whether it's the one we did, you and I, with the SEC podcast, or the one that Chris Dortch and I do, the national one, every other week. So that whole gig is a lot of fun too, and I'm really appreciative to Chris for thinking of us there, and looking forward to seeing where that takes us. It's going to be fun.
Yeah, we are doing a paid newsletter at $72 a year, and it's had some great stories in it. I did one on Gonzaga a couple of weeks ago. You're going to do one on Grayson Murphy at Belmont, I believe, correct?
I am. Yes, I've been working on that the last couple of days, and talking about he's a guy who does a lot of stuff, but this is focusing on his rebounding, which is remarkable for a point guard. He led all point guards in the country in rebounding last year at over 7 per game. So exploring a little bit of that and just what makes him successful there. Talk to Grayson and a couple other folks. So I'll be looking for that on blueribbon.substack.com.
Well, I'm very excited about collaborating with you on a couple of ventures. Kevin, thank you so much for joining us today. Have a wonderful holiday weekend, and we will catch you again probably midweek after the Texas A&M game.
Sounds like a plan, Chris. Thanks so much for having me. Really appreciate it.
You bet. He's Kevin Ingram. I'm Chris Lee. Thank you for listening to the Vandy Sports Podcast.